Hey,
Yo.
Heyo. I had just said we were just talking about American Pie and how, how it feels when you watch it. And I said, well, that's sort of how this all started was, you and I watching American Pie together and it bringing back all the feels. And thus the 1999 parody of 1985 was
Yeah,
born.
we did a TikTok thing together, and I saw in one of the comments, like the first comment that was on mine was like, the American Pie references never get old, like they're sort of timeless. It's always going to have the Shermanator and Stifler's mom.
it's crazy. We were just talking about in our kind of pre-production meeting about how it was almost meme worthy before memes were around. It was like you had that one time in band camp was just everybody quoting it every day in high school, in
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
school. And
It's
yeah,
funny. It's like that's one of those ones, right? Where it's like, this one time that those three words will never be the same. It's almost like when somebody says something about a van and that van, you live in a van down by the river, or you're
yep.
killing me smalls. It's up there with those. I mean, and just this timeless phrase, this one time at band camp. And so poor kids now, like they're going into junior high and they're just like, yeah, and my kid's going to band camp, and their parents' friends are like, oh, this one time.
Yep.
And nudge, nudge, nudge. The kid has no idea what's going on.
It's so good. It's so iconic. You're right. It's right up there.
Yeah.
That's I think my favorite line in 1999 is leading into the second chorus. We got that reference in because we of course had to.
Right.
Yeah, I think the line is Michelle used Jim just like this one time at band camp.
Yeah.
She used her flute to play some Pearl Jam, Green Day.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's a winner there.
So good. So I mean, Jared, I can't even begin to tell you how surreal this is. I mean, I grew up with Bowling for Soup. Like, I had to be 14 years old, just like recording Girl All the Bad Guys Want on the radio, like onto a tape,
Yeah.
because that's how you used to do it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just getting chills just like,
Yeah, it's crazy. That album still came out on cassette,
whoa.
we still had it's super weird, That was but yeah, that was a big one for sure.
So we'll obviously get into that one-on-one, but yeah, let's talk about you guys. I mean, first of all, how did you two meet? Like, when was the first time that you guys met?
I actually would love to take this one. We have a funny pre-story that Thomas actually didn't even realize happened until I told him in my pool on his birthday the other day. But we were trying to actually get him on my podcast called Jaret Goes to the Movies, which is why what would end up being the reason we would meet. My producer reached out to him and he was like, yeah, no, I don't really do anything like from the past. He was like, I'm really focused on this one thing. And when you hear it from his mouth now, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense. You were focused on this thing you had worked really hard on and you're trying to do that. But like for me, from like the second hand from my producer, I'm like, well, F that guy, like fuck him, and I'm like, I even got on the podcast giving him shit about it. Well, apparently he doesn't want to talk about this movie or whatever. And it's so funny because I had so many people tell me, man, you've got to meet this Thomas and Nicholas. You guys are so similar. You guys are going to be such good friends. I'm like, man, no, man, that guy turned me down. He doesn't even want to talk about this and this and this. So when he came up to come here and do a live event with me for Jaret Goes to Movies, I was like, I mean, you can try to get him if you want to, but apparently he doesn't like to talk about any of this stuff. Well, that was going to happen. And he was scheduled to come here. And all of a sudden I'm seeing the pictures and I'm like, okay, I guess he's into it. Well, I started following him on Instagram and I got him to do an episode of Rockstar Dad Show to promote the other podcast.
Yeah.
Got him to do my other podcast to promote the other podcast. You cipher that out when you write this.
Right.
And I just was like, okay, this guy's like the coolest dude in the world. Like what? There must be some sort of miscommunication here about it. And so it was really funny when I was telling like the rest of the cast from Jaret Goes to the Movies, I'm like, oh yeah, we've got Thomas on. Like, well, what happened to the fact that he didn't ever want to talk to us? I'm like, apparently there was a bit of a miscommunication, and I'll let you explain that, Thomas, from your perspective, and I can't believe you didn't know that And
I mean, I vaguely put it together because when I remember Sean hitting me up, but what was happening is I was doing Adverse, and it's a very serious film and a different turn for my career in what I'm known for in comedy. So my business partner and the director and the writer, who had like honed me into this completely different character, was like, listen, if we're going to get any respect with this film, you got to steer away from all nostalgia while we're promoting this movie. You can't do anything nostalgia. And I mean, I've already done retro screening events and Comic-Cons and signed pictures as Henry Rowan Gardner and done the whole nine. But he was like, when we're doing this, you got to do this. And so that was my MO, is I just started turning down everything nostalgic, while nostalgia was on the rise especially during the lockdown. And here I'm going, no, can't do that. And it was hurting me. So that was not a fair representation of me. And of course, Jared had every right to say F this guy for me turning down Jaret Goes to the Movies, because it wasn't what I wanted. Yeah, what I was being instructed to do. And to be fair, Adverse was well received by critics and audiences alike. And we opened up, big film festivals in Portugal. I beg to differ, though. I think if I had done Jaret Goes to the Movies, I don't think Fantas Porto in Portugal would have been like, well, we were going to have you open the film festival, but you talked about American Pie with Jaret Reddick.
It's hindsight is 2020 though, right? I mean, it's like that whole thing of like if I ever get arrested for a murder, and they tell me not to talk to anybody or whatever, they can go fuck themselves. I'm going to tell everybody that I did not commit that murder. I didn't do that. Well, he's not talking to the press. It's just I'm going to be talking to the press, guys. I didn't murder anybody.
Right.
It's funny though that this would be our introduction to then when we meet in person and we started, chatting and we were getting along, and now, we're like Insta buddies ever since December and this podcast. Yeah. But some of my best friends growing up were the ones that I had like the major beef with the first time I met them. Like I remember one of my best friends, I think he pulled the beanbag chair out from under me at acting class, and I nearly broke my tailbone, and we just hated each other. And then we were best friends.
Yeah, that does happen from time to time. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty instant. I mean, we had Thomas on the Rockstar Dad show, and then he wanted to talk through some stuff about, coming into town and what to expect doing the Jaret Goes to the Movie live event. And he was moving at the time, and we got on the phone, and I'm not a phone talker, but that phone conversation was like 2 hours long, and us just talking about we came up with ideas for projects we were going to do together. And it was already kind of one of those things where we're like, we should do this, or we should do this. And so
we started talking about doing a podcast together.
Yeah. We were talking about, it's called What the Hell is Wrong with Me? And it's just about all the quirks, that people have.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because we were talking about all the hoarding that I was doing.
All the hoarding.
Like, why do I have all this shit that I'm moving? I'm like, I'm a hoarder. I must be a secret hoarder. And then it was like, well, that could be an episode of a podcast.
It's like the stack of drives that I have right here. I don't even have the cable to go in this thing or anything to hook it up to. But there's a fucking stack of these things over here. Nice. And I can't get rid of them for whatever reason.
You guys are perfect together.
Yeah. And, but yeah, definitely. Everybody was right. I mean, it's like once we met, we realized we had so many friends in common, and it just seems about right. So we definitely have a very unique friendship, early on into this relationship. And man, we're having a lot of fun.
Good stuff. Now, so whose idea was it for you guys to cover 1985? That was all you. Okay.
Well, I mean, he says it's me, but I don't know. I mean, I think we just kind of started talking about,
No. I'll tell you how it happened.
All right. You tell.
We did this live podcast. I was so stoked to be like doing something with Jaret and, Bowling for Soup. So that I was like, well, I want to play a show afterwards. Like, will he get up and play an acoustic show? So I know Jaret doesn't normally do that for these events, but he agreed to it. So we go up after the podcast and we're playing a live show, and Jaret plays 1985. And after the first chorus, you're still chucking the rhythm along, right? And you just turn, you go, we should be singing lyrics about American Pie. It was just an off the cuff remark. And so then we started trying to do it, but because of the 1 or 10 beers that we had during the podcast, it sort of fell on its ass. And the next day I dummied up some lyrics that I spent like an hour and a half working on. I texted them to Jaret. And so he goes, "Oh, that's really funny. We should make a TikTok video." And so again, you sparked the idea, but then I followed it up.
That seems about right. I mean, it's like one of those things where I'll do something in a live situation. And for me, I'm just messing around, and then he took the idea though of me just messing around with it and actually wrote a verse and chorus in his hotel room, and it went bonkers, and that's when you blew up on TikTok, right? I mean, wasn't it that video and then the Henry "I'm just a kid" thing?
Yeah, it was the video of me doing an acoustic in the hotel room. Well, it was Baltimore. It was in January.
Okay.
I land in Baltimore to do a Rookie of the Year screening to benefit the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Because, now I'm back to doing nostalgia now that Adverse is already out. And so I land in Baltimore and I get a text from Jared. He goes, "Hey, man." Can I go, "Oh, man, he's playing tomorrow." He goes, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" I go, "You need a surprise opener, LOL." In case he said no, then I could just be like, "I was just kidding."
Right.
But then he said yes. So I was so amped up about it. I was in my hotel room before the show, and I just recorded the TikTok of me doing the first verse and chorus. And so after that happened, Jared's like, "Come to Dallas, come to my house. Let's punch up these lyrics. You got some good ideas, but every line's gotta hit hard." And so we did that. I sang in his studio. He's like, "Listen, Bowling for Soup's going to back you up." And then Jared sang the harmonies. Like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine that this would transpire just from Jared being funny in the moment. And I took it to heart, but here we are.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, especially if you're going to do a parody, like every single line has to matter. Yeah. And, so it was like there can't be any throwaway lines and
no filler, all killer, no filler,
all killer, no filler. Yeah. That's a very, very good way to put it. I mean, they knew what they were doing, and our process was really good. And it was good enough actually to where we got that thing all etched together and stuff. And I was like, we should just write a song for you, right? I mean, I was like, you're always working on new stuff, and he got to experience the Jaret co-write, and man, we wrote a winner. It was great.
That's so cool.
We haven't recorded it yet, but it's one of my best songs that I've ever been a part of writing. It's definitely going on my 7th album, which now I can say I've got one song with Jaret Reddick, one song with Ace Enders from the early November. And I've got it lined up to go with Tom Higginson from the Plain White Tees and Lit and, AJ and Matt from the Dangerous Summer. It's going to be a good record. I'm probably going to write another one with Jaret.
Yeah. You got to do it. Wouldn't it have been funny if you were like, "It's going to be on my 7th album. I'm about to release my 4th one."
Like, we'll hold that. Oh man. So, all right. So like you guys are doing what tonight? You're doing Jaret at the Movies for Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah. So the same sort of thing where we started out a live show
afterward, meaning like we're not playing a concert after.
Yeah. No more of that.
Probably mainly because you're on tour all summer long with Less Than Jake, playing like 1 million shows across the U.S.
Yeah, we needed to get this one in because there really wasn't a lot of time to do it. We're both really busy coming up. And so just so happened that we could settle in on the week that I'm home, and it's going to be fun.
Cool. That's great. So let's talk eBaumsWorld a little bit. So I started working here just about this time last year, and honestly, it's been a dream come true. I grew up with it. I was blocked. All of our computers in high school were blocked from eBaumsWorld. It was all we tried to do to get on it. So this is like come full circle for me. And especially now just talking to you guys, this is like so full circle. Right. Do you have any favorite memories about the site or any, I guess, viral clips, memes, anything you want to shout out?
Absolutely, man. I think it was when we were making, it had to have been making Drunk Enough to Dance. So this had been like 2002. We stumbled upon those G.I. Joe commercial spoofs.
The PSAs.
The PSAs. And I mean, we watched those so much. And funnily enough, we still quote those all the time. Anytime, like, you're like, "Hey, Gary asked for a drumstick. You're like, give him the stick. Don't give him the stick, and it's just like, pork chop sandwiches.
Mhm.
I mean, we saved all those lines from that still. So it just goes to show you like how much we were on that site all the time.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Homestar Runner on there at one point?
So Homestar Runner is separate, but that was the same time too, because that was
Right.
all that era,
We were going back and forth between those two. Like we were basically all we talked in 2002. If you were hanging around with Bowling for Soup, we spoke G.I. Joe, PSA, and Strong Bad. That's how we spoke. We're gonna kick the cheat. And I mean,
check me out. No, really. I mean, check me out.
So good.
So I mean, Bowling for Soup. A lot of hours messing around on there. And I know I'm not really a computer surfer still. I don't really spend a lot of time like looking around at stuff, but anytime the guys were finding something funny, they're coming in and getting me and we're going in there. So a lot of time making our second biggest album, eBaumsWorld, pretty much helped us get through the time.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Well, it's also like, I guess, the younger generations don't realize there was no YouTube back then. It wasn't something that existed, So it was eBaumsWorld. It was, Homestar Runner. I guess 4chan might have been around.
I don't know that I knew that. I mean, you just would have to go. I mean, finding stuff wasn't the easiest, like we would find like different variations on those G.I. Joe PSAs in other places, but you guys had them all there in the same spot. I know I keep going back to that, but that's definitely the strongest memory I have of like anytime we were showing somebody like, oh my God, have you heard this? You got to hear this.
Yeah.
Well, this is all before the days of like what now, you can access memes in your text messages.
Oh,
and you can even like download 500 apps to like generate your own meme.
Right.
That didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
When we were still on AOL and Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true.
I don't know if you guys were ever fans of the soundboards, but I remember just totally like loving the Arnold Schwarzenegger soundboard.
Yeah, totally remember that too. We would make little recordings of us talking to whoever, and when Thomas and I were at my show was in Newport, and he had posted the 1999 little fast track video that we had done, and I said to him, I go, holy shit, eBaumsWorld just liked your post or whatever. And he goes, that's great. I'm like running around, Gary, Chris, eBaumsWorld just like this. And they're like, what? Like, they don't get excited about anything, That was pretty nuts. And then he goes, hey, eBaumsWorld said they might want to interview us. And I'm like, what? Just so I feel the same way. I got to be honest, man. It's there's a nostalgic aspect of this for me too, man. And definitely takes me back.
For sure. And I thank you guys so much for doing this. This is crazy. So Thomas, you did an album of all the American Pie soundtrack. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was my frat party album, which was my sixth album. I picked my favorite songs from the American Pie soundtracks.
Right.
But I also kind of, bent the rules a little bit. We did a cover of Stacy's Mom, which I know Bowling for Soup also has one, but we sang Stifler's Mom instead.
Right.
Which I always thought was remiss, considering that Fountains of Wayne did release that after American Pie was already out.
Exactly.
So I think they missed the boat a little bit, in my opinion, but still a brilliant song.
Yeah. And that was actually where I was going. You guys both covered that song, which I think is really, it's again, just kind of cosmic that you guys did that. And now you're just like making music together.
Yeah.
It just shows that we're like-minded.
Yeah. I didn't know the Stifler's Mom thing existed. I knew he was in a band, but, knew that he made music and had been doing it for a while. I knew that he had worked with a couple of friends here and there. I produced and wrote 2 songs on a Blues Traveler record that Thomas is on as well. But I didn't know about the Stifler's Mom thing, but people love that shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was the best thing when I opened up for Jaret and Rob in Baltimore that night, that fateful evening. I said to Jaret, I go, hey man, are you playing Stacy's Mom tonight in your set? And he's like, no, you can go ahead and do that one. So I opened with Stifler's Mom, and the crowd instantly was singing along with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, Bowling for Soup fans are the coolest audience that I have ever played in front of. please let me play more shows with you. And Jared's like, yeah, everybody says that. Once they play a show, they just want to come open for us all the time. And I go, well, yeah, because your fans are awesome.
Yeah. So is there any chance that you guys do eventually do a tour together?
He's actually going to come over to Ireland with us in December and do some dates. And we have a makeup date from COVID that he's going to come and do. So I think that there'll be quite a few opportunities. And then we have a show that he actually got me on in Hawaii in October. That's before. So yeah. So we have some things coming up where we're actually going to get to play together, and looking forward to that for sure.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, we'll definitely be following you on the social and everything. So
I think we need some crossover memes, just saying.
Oh, for sure.
American Pie, Bowling for Soup, eBaum meme.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Zach, for having us. I'm going to bow out.
Appreciate it.
All right, buddy.
Have a good night, dude.
I'll see you in my house when I walk out of this room.
Yes, I will see you in your house that I'm still in a different room now.
Okay. Sounds good.
See you,
Okay.
dude.